This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that, 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Look at this carefully. Really listen to what this guy is saying here, because this is the moment the mask completely falls off. Not conservative policy, not border security, not America First economics. No, this is just bitterness wrapped in internet irony, pretending to be political analysis. And the crazy part, people online still try to package this guy like he's some misunderstood intellectual getting silenced by the establishment. No, he's not. Piers Morgan gave him the exact thing people kept demanding: a platform, a microphone, and direct questions. And within seconds, Nick Fuentes says the quiet part out loud in the most radioactive way imaginable. This is why normal conservatives keep rejecting this stuff. Because once you move past the memes and the trolling, there's nothing serious underneath it. It's grievance politics mixed with internet shock addiction. And watch how this becomes the pattern for the entire interview. Every time Piers pins him down on something specific, Fuentes retreats into, it was a joke, you're twisting it, or you don't understand the humor. Funny how the truth teller suddenly becomes a comedian the second accountability enters the room. Watch this next part carefully, because Piers starts pulling on one thread and the whole thing begins to unravel.
I always believe everybody is a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. Maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. It said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And I'll
I'm not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think everybody
I'm not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
This right here is where Piers completely outclasses him. Calm, controlled, precise. He doesn't scream. He doesn't panic. He just uses Fuentes' own words against him. That's what makes Nick so uncomfortable here, because he's used to living in environments where people either worship him or fear challenging him directly. But Piers keeps dragging him back to the same simple point. You said this publicly, so what did you mean by it? And Nick instantly starts acting like the victim. Suddenly it's unfair. Suddenly it's an ambush. Suddenly his father is being attacked. No, what's actually happening is that his own rhetoric sounds completely different once it leaves the bubble of edgy live stream culture and gets exposed to a mainstream audience. That's the entire game here. These guys survive on ambiguity. They want the hardcore audience to hear one message while the broader audience hears another. And when someone like Piers forces clarity, the whole performance starts collapsing. This is also why mainstream Republicans have to be smarter than this. Democrats already spend every election cycle trying to paint every conservative as extreme. Why on earth would Republicans voluntarily hand them clips like this? Conservatives win when we talk about inflation, crime, border chaos, energy, and family stability. Not this weird racial grievance rabbit hole that turns normal voters off instantly, and you can see Piers recognizing that in real time. He's basically exposing the difference between serious conservatism and terminally online rage politics. But Nick keeps digging himself deeper in the next section, and this is where things go completely sideways.
Look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees and there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city and we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
This is the part where Fuentes thinks he sounds profound, but he actually sounds completely reckless. Notice the pattern: massive sweeping statements, collective blame, emotional escalation. Everything is framed through resentment. And again, this is where he loses normal Americans. Because most people, including conservatives, can recognize crime problems in cities without descending into this kind of rhetoric. You can support law and order without sounding like you're trying to divide the country into demographic enemies. That's the difference between adults discussing public policy and internet personalities farming outrage clips. And honestly, Piers deserves credit here. A lot of interviewers either softball this stuff completely or turn the conversation into performative screaming. Piers did neither. He let Fuentes talk long enough for viewers to hear exactly how he thinks. That's actually more devastating because once people hear the full argument instead of edited Twitter clips, the supposed genius image starts evaporating fast. You start realizing this isn't some master strategist reshaping conservatism. It's a guy addicted to provocation who mistakes shock value for intelligence. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're tired of conservatives constantly getting associated with the dumbest voices on the internet, while Democrats get treated like respectable experts no matter how radical they get, hit subscribe right now, because that double standard is exactly why conversations like this matter. Real conservatives don't need this garbage to win arguments. The facts are already on our side. But Fuentes still thinks he can talk his way out of this mess. Watch what happens when Piers keeps pressing him on the contradictions.
Right. And you said that
You said this. We're looping. You said this
No,
already.
but you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay, so when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying, well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat an Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. Mm-hmm. And these people well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way,
60.
right? You were born in
60.
19? Yeah. So you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society. But you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay. People can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said.
And there it is, the entire strategy exposed in real time. Every answer turns into smoke. Every direct question becomes a detour. It was a joke. You misunderstood it. That's not what I meant. Over and over and over again. But here's the problem for Nick Fuentes. Eventually, your own clips become too specific to hide behind irony anymore. And that's what Piers understood perfectly. He kept forcing the conversation back to the actual words, not vibes, not memes, not internet culture, actual words, actual statements, actual implications. And Fuentes clearly hates that because the entire persona depends on staying slippery enough that supporters can project intelligence onto him while critics look hysterical trying to pin him down. But once you slow the conversation down, it falls apart fast. You start seeing that there's no coherent movement here, no governing vision, no serious political roadmap, just provocation stacked on top of provocation. And honestly, this is why the Republican movement has to stay disciplined going into the future. Democrats are already collapsing under inflation, border failures, crime spikes, censorship instincts, and cultural extremism. Republicans do not need self-inflicted damage from fringe personalities trying to hijack conservative energy for clicks and controversy. That's why this interview mattered. Piers Morgan basically held up a mirror and let viewers watch the contradictions happen live. And instead of looking like a revolutionary thinker, Fuentes came across like a guy constantly scrambling to repackage his own words depending on the audience in front of him. Gone. The mystique, gone. The edgy genius image, gone. The illusion that this is some future leader of conservatism. What viewers saw instead was somebody completely unprepared for sustained accountability outside his own bubble. And once that happens, all the swagger in the world can't save you.